Hi, and welcome again. Today our commander is Dihada Binder of Wheels, and she is my favorite commander at the moment, since she's so adaptable and can be constantly updated. It always feels like a fresh new deck for me, and it never gets boring. Dihada Binder of Wheels is a Mardu Planeswalker commander from Dominaria United's commander set, and she has her own precon deck. In its essence, she is originally a Legendaries Matters deck due to her abilities. She is also a very fast commander used in the CDH format, since she can provide a very fast win comboing out with Flicker and Underworld Breach. However, this will not be a CDH turbo deck, as the main focus is not a turbo win focused on that combo in particular. The deck that we will talk about today is a Legendary Matters deck with a treasure team, in order to be able to gain from her busted -3 ability, which we will dive deeper later on in the video. Dihada costs 1 colorless mana and 1 red, 1 white and 1 black. She has 3 loyalty planeswalker abilities, and they are all very strong, especially her -3. These are +2, up to 1 target legendary creature gains vigilance, lifelink and indestructible until the end of my next turn. This is a very strong ability, granting us a ton of keywords and value from already strong legendary creatures that we can put on the board and allow us to protect Dihada from being attacked. No one wants to attack her, or us for that matter, if we have an indestructible lifelinker protecting us. -3. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library, put any number of legendary cards from among them into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Create a treasure token for each card put in your graveyard this way. This is an excellent ability for resource advantage. If we need cards, we can just activate this ability and choose the cards more suitable for us to put in hand, legendary ones that the deck will have a lot. Or we can just boost her treasure creation ability by putting them on the graveyard and creating that many treasure tokens. This ability also makes her a great reanimation deck, although this was not the path that we have chosen for her. -11. Gain control of all non-end permanents until the end of turn. Untap them, they gain haste until the end of turn. As a Planeswalker ultimate, this Insurrection type ability is very difficult to achieve. If we go for the +2 ability, supplying ourselves with life gain and persistent blockers, we may achieve this, and if we do, it's endgaming. As for the game plan, we mentioned we did not go for the turbo combo deck, and we went for more of a mid-range deck. We also did not go for the reanimation strategy completely, since we did not want to be locked out of the game by stacked pieces like Rest in Peace or Leyline of the Void, although we do have added a lot of recursion from the graveyard. The aim is to have as many legendary cards as possible, so that when we use the other abilities, we can maximize our choices. We also have included the Treasure Sacrifice team as a win condition for the deck. This way, the few cards that we have added that are not legendary will synergize with this path, so that we can take advantage from them later on. There are also a few combos on the deck that we will also get into further on. Let's get into the Treasure team. Since this is one of the main goals of the deck, we have added the following. Atsushi, the Blazing Sky. This one is a great card on the deck, since it is a legendary creature and also creates 3 treasure tokens when it dies. Braids, a Risen Nightmare. This is a very strong card in any treasure sacrifice deck, since we are able to pressure our opponents for some card draw. Captain Lannery Storm, Gimli of the Glittering Caves, Gloin, Dwarf Emissary, Lotho, Corrupt Sheriff, Kalain, Magda, Brazen Outlaw. All great cards to include that create treasures and also being legendary as well. Magda allows us to sacrifice treasures and tutor a dragon or artifact card and put it directly on the battlefield, gaining us an insane amount of advantage on the board. Some cards in this deck that we could get with Magda are Gadrak, the Crown Surge. This is not the strongest that we could get on the board, but is a dragon and synergizes with treasures. Atsushi, the Blazing Sky. Also not the strongest card that we get on the battlefield, but also synergizes with treasure creation and can give us some impulse card draw when it dies. Junji, the Midnight Sky. A strong card on its own, being a 5/5 flyer with menace and with a reanimation ability that when it dies, we can put a non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield, so any graveyard, not just ours. For our last and most powerful dragon on the deck, we have the huge 8 mana Big Mardu Dragon. Piru the Volatile, a legendary dragon with flying and lifelink, and when it dies it deals 7 damage to each non-legendary creature. This is a perfect card for this deck, since it will probably not affect our cards at all, dealing damage only to non-legendaries. Also, having lifelink, whenever it deals damage, we will gain life, so even if we cannot pay its upkeep, we will almost clear the entire board and engage huge amounts of life. We could also go for a lot of artifacts with Magda, and we will get into those during the video. Carrying on with our treasure-themed cards, we have also added one from Dungeons & Dragons movie, which is Forge, Neverwinter Charlatan. We thought this was such a fun card that we almost made a commander deck with it. Unfortunately, we thought we were missing red in its identity. A very recent addition to the deck is Mastermind Plum. We are very excited for this card and we can't wait to try it out. This is a legendary human wizard that, whenever it attacks, it allows you to exile a card from a graveyard, again any graveyard, and if it was an artifact card, we create 1 treasure token. The interesting thing is his second ability, which states that whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, we can draw a card and lose 1 life. We can't wait to find out if this is as busted as it seems. Also, if you are also thinking about trying out this card, let us know how it went. We haven't mentioned one of our other favorite cards of the deck as well, Malik, Grim Manipulator, from The Walking Dead Secret Lair. This card has removal, treasure creation, and fun interaction all in one. We have talked about the treasure enablers, but how do we win? As we mentioned, we have added some non-legendary creatures to the deck, so even though they are not legendary, they are essential pieces in the deck. These are Mayhem Devil, will allow us to ping 1 damage to any target every time a player sacrifices a permanent. This is amazing for us who will naturally sacrifice treasures. Also, it has great synergy with Malik that forces an opponent to sacrifice creatures. Mirkwood Bats, another powerful non-legendary creature in this deck, similar to Mayhem Devil. Every time we create and sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. A very effective drain ability here. These are the only 2 non-legendary creatures at the moment, so we cannot give them Dihada's abilities. However, we have added some ring tempt to the deck with Call of the Ring, since besides giving us a good amount of card draw in a deck that spends a lot of resources, gives us the ability to ring tempt each upkeep, turning a creature into a legendary one. So, if we are lucky, we are able to make Mirkwood Bats and Mayhem Devil legendary and give them all of Dihada's keywords for maximum damage. Speaking of our game plan and ways to close the game, let's talk about the combos we have added to the deck. We have Abdel Adrian with Animate Dead. Abdel Adrian must be in your graveyard and Animate Dead in hand, and mana available to cast it. 1. Cast Animate Dead by paying its mana cost, returning Abdel Adrian from your graveyard to the battlefield, and attaching Animate Dead to it. 2. Abdel Adrian enters the battlefield, exiling Animate Dead until Abdel Adrian leaves the battlefield, thus creating a 1/1 soldier creature token. Animate Dead triggers, causing you to sacrifice Abdel Adrian. Or, Animate Dead returns to the battlefield, returning Abdel Adrian from your graveyard to the battlefield, and attaching Animate Dead to it. Repeat from step 2, resulting in infinite creature tokens, infinite ETBs, infinite LTBs, infinite death triggers, sacrifice triggers, and blinking. Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, plus Heartless Idetsugu. Gisela is a powerful 7-mana angel with flying and first strike that states that if a source would deal damage to an opponent, or a permanent an opponent controls, that source deals double that damage to that player or permanent instead. If a source would deal damage to you or a permanent you control, prevent half that damage rounded up. Heartless Idetsugu, a 5-mana cost ogre shaman that deals damage to each player equal to half that player's life total rounded down. We require both of them on the battlefield. Heartless Idetsugu does not have summoning sickness. For this we have added some haste enablers to the deck that we will talk about later on. This would be the most effective if all opponents have more or less even life totals, which is not always possible, of course. Activate Heartless Hidetsugu by tapping it, causing it to deal damage to each opponent equal to their life total, and causing it to deal damage to you equal to a quarter of your life total because of Gisela's ability. It would be even more effective if you can give Dihada's +2 abilities to Heartless Hidetsugu, gaining you life while you do the damage that is doubled by Gisela. This will result in each opponent losing the game due to having 0 or less life due to infinite damage and loss of life total. Another combo on the deck is Khatradabik of Urborg and Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Boromir, Warden of the Tower, is a 3/3 human soldier with vigilance and in itself a great stacks and protection piece. We have so many copies of this card since we use it on almost every deck that uses white. Due to its ability to counter 0 mana spells, it is a great protection piece against more competitive decks and to prevent those mana creeps and 0 cost mana rocks. The ability that is most relevant here is its second one with Ring Tempt. Khatradabik is a legendary zombie wizard that gives other zombies vigilance, and whenever a legendary creature we control dies, we create a token that is a copy of that creature. Sept is not legendary and is a 2/2 black zombie creature in addition to its other types. So, for this combo to work, we require both these permanents to be on the battlefield. 1. Activate Boromir by sacrificing it. 2. When Boromir dies, Khatradabik triggers, creating a non-legendary token copy of Boromir that is a 2/2 zombie in addition to its other types. 3. Resolve the Boromir ability from step 1, causing the ring to tempt you and for the Boromir token to become your ring bearer, thus making it legendary. Another wincon that we have added to this deck, more related to our treasure team, is Revel in Riches. We create so many treasures, it would only make sense that we add this to the deck. And since this is not a legendary enchantment, we might accidentally mill it if we use Dihada's -3 ability. So we have also added a Hall of Helia's Generosity, so we could go grab it from the graveyard if we need to. Also, Rise of the Dark Realms, recent addition to the deck, since it has been reprinted in the new Dimir precon of Murders at Karlov Manor. A bit costly in terms of mana, but almost certainly game-changing if we are able to put all creatures from all graveyards onto the battlefield under our control. V2 Thorn of the Dusk Rose works even better in this deck than we initially expected, even without having added Exquisite Blood to the deck. We gain so much life that Vito turns into a machine gun, dealing huge amounts of damage. Other enchantments we have added to the deck. War of the Last Alliance. This saga enables us to search for legendary creatures, reveal them, and put them in our hands, and we are able to do this for 2 activations. Although we are revealing our cards, it is still 2 tutors for 4 mana. Also, its last activation gives double strike to creatures, which can be brutal on the board. Smothering Tide. This is just an amazing staple for any deck that has white, especially one in a treasure team deck. Every time we play it, it just gives an incredible boost on the board. Hammer of Purfurus and Whip of Erebus, both of them legendary artifact enchantments, which make them a perfect match for the deck. Since Dihada is such a good value producer, we have added a good amount of protection, board wipes, and some targeted removal with the following: Blasphemous Act, Ruinous Ultimatum, Wrath of God. For Graveyard Recursion, Cut Ribbons, Damned, Sevin's Reclamation, and Unburial Rites. In terms of targeted removal, we have added Anguished and Making, so we can exile any permanent that could be bothering us on the board, Swords to Plowshares, one of the best removal spells in the format. For even more protection, Reprieve, another card that we add to almost every deck with white. For just 2 mana, an instant that can return a spell back to its owner's hand and also draws us a card. This is especially great for those spells that say, this spell cannot be countered, since it returns the spell back to hand and does not counter it. Take the Bait, another new card from Murders at Karlov Manor. I cannot wait to try this one out. This spell must be cast only during an opponent's turn and only during combat. You will prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and all planeswalkers you control this turn. Untap all attacking creatures and go them. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase. Opens, another spell that prevents damage dealt to us and planeswalkers we control, and redirects that damage back. We have only added 2 tutors that we feel were the most adequate for the deck, can be cast at an instant speed and only cost 1 mana. Vampiric Tutor and Enlightened Tutor. for some value cards that push for some card draw and advantage or are just very good on their own. Jiru and Hazoret, Sheoldred, Queen Marchesa, Odric, Lunarch Marshal, Tomik, Wielder of Law, Shanid's Sleeper's Scourge, Brass's Tunnel Grinder. I'm amazed by how good this card is in the deck. This has refilled my hand so many times. When it enters the battlefield, you can discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards plus one. Later in the game, when I have a handful of lands, it is great to be able to put them all in the graveyard and just refill ourselves with more useful ones. In conclusion, there are so many cards and strategies that go well with this commander that makes it hard to provide a list of alternative cards to add. However, one card that comes to mind and that we haven't still added to the deck is the Meat Hook Massacre. Legendary enchantment and such a strong card, it fits right into the team, and we will surely add it into the future and try it out. We hope you like the list and would love to know what you think. Do you like this strategy and what cards would you add or remove? You can view the full deck list on the video's description. See you soon!